Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, where the hero of today's show is Op Market Garden 1944, gee, I wonder what he's named after, in one of the all-time great machines in World of Tanks, the Tier 9 British tank destroyer, the Tortoise. He's top tier in a Tier 9 battle here on the cliff map, and there's no artillery. It's not quite as good as being in a World of Warships battle with no aircraft carriers, but it's close enough. This really is a good machine, by the way. It was a great machine when it was introduced, and it's been around a while now, and it's, despite the power creep, which is all too common in games of this nature, it's still a very, very good machine. And it's huge, by the way. I mean, this thing is a seriously chunky slab of metal, and I don't think you really get an appreciation for just how big it is by playing the game, because it's surrounded by other tanks, and tanks are big machines. It's a bit like watching a rugby match and you see the referee and you think, wow, he's a little fella. He's not. He's a big fella. He's just on a field surrounded by absolutely huge fellas. It's kind of like that with the Tortoise here in World of Tanks, except the other way around. Until you stand next to this thing, you really have no idea just how absolutely massive and chonky it is. And it is still a great machine despite the World of Tanks power creep. I mean, it's not fast. It's way too big to be fast. This is not your typical hide in the bushes at the back tank destroyer because you don't have any armour. The Tortoise is very well armoured and has an amazing gun. Although it never had this gun in reality. But it was never put into production in reality. I think only 2 examples were built and only 1 survives. But if the Tortoise ever had gone into production, the second this 120mm gun became available, it's entirely likely that it would have been fitted with it. What on earth is this guy doing? Little tank, this is not the place to be. Well, it's not a little tank, it's a 45 TP, it's a Tier 8 heavy, but yeah, its armour isn't that good. Oh well. First blood to Op Market Garden's team. And it's not that the Tortoise hasn't been affected by power creep at all. I mean, it has, but it's still a great machine. Oh dear, now that is a little tank. The T-20, you absolutely shouldn't be there. Right. Third and second blood to Op Market Garden's team. But as you can see, he took a bit of a spanking crossing the open ground to the next point of cover up here. And he was well angled. And yet he still lost half of his health. And that, unfortunately, is the power creep that I'm talking about. Because, I mean, it's World of Tanks. It's pointless, particularly in a high-tier game, complaining about people loading the gold ammo, and that's kind of always been the Tortoise's fate. Anytime somebody sees one of these things lumbering towards them, they almost always press that 2 key and load the skill. But the amount of penetration on gold ammo in tanks that have been released over the last 2 years has just gone up and up and up, and while a well-angled Tortoise would have probably come off quite well doing exactly what Op Market Garden did just there 2 years ago, that's no longer the case. Oh, that's a very brave move from the T-26, rushing the Renegade like that with, yeah, there's the K-91 with those guys on his flank, and yep, the T-26 is dead, the Renegade is still tucked in behind the rocks over there. That's a tricky spot for the Renegade to be in, by the way. I mean, he was lucky to get in there, but getting out of it is a different matter entirely. Not as long as, well, there's anybody left alive over here on Op Market Garden's team. There's the K-91. I mean, the Tortoise does have tough armour, particularly if you angle it, and this is one of the great things about the Tortoise. It's the gun traverse on that 120mm gun. It's got like a 45-degree firing arc, which means you can angle the tank at 45 degrees and still shoot targets straight ahead of you. This is not something that you can do, for example, in a French tank destroyer, which are good machines. I mean, they have great guns, but they have horrifically bad firing arcs, which means that if you're shooting at an enemy, you basically have to be square on, looking straight at them, or you just won't have the firing arc to bring the gun to bear on the target. They also tend to have, well, they're a kind of curious hybrid between the 2 standard types of tank destroyer in World of Tanks. You've got the sneaky, stealthy tank destroyers with no armour but great guns, and then you've got the big, chunky, powerful, heavily armoured tank destroyers that are slow as hell, but also usually tend to have great guns. The French tank destroyers tend to, well, be moderately stealthy and moderately well armoured, and can bounce an awful lot of shots, from the front at least, if they're angled well, but that narrow gun traverse means they don't always have the luxury of being able to angle well. And the armour holds up pretty well, until it doesn't, and then they get murdered. The Tortoise, however, can angle really well. It doesn't really care about stealth. Upmarket Garden, by the way, is doing something very unusual here in World of Tanks. He's paying attention to the map. Now the scores are 6 kills to 3. It looks like the team are ahead. Technically they are. But they're definitely doing better over at this end of the map than they are at that end of the map. So Upmarket Garden is moving to a spot where he can hopefully give some assistance to his beleaguered enemy teammates up there, while also, by virtue of being on the higher ground up here, if the situation up there to the east stabilises, he's got some shots down at the enemy tanks that he was shooting at just now. Unfortunately, it does not look like the situation over there is going to stabilise. They've only got one tank left, the Kunzerpanzer. So he's got a selection of targets available here. Does the right thing, goes for the one that he can kill. Knocks out the enemy Kunzerpanzer. Unfortunately, the friendly Kunzerpanzer is not going to survive this. Yep, he's dead. So Upmarket Garden now needs to... well, he's already in a position to react to any enemy tanks heading this way from the east. Although with the death of the Kunzerpanzer, they've all now gone undetected, so it's kind of important that they eliminate this threat over here behind them, because they don't want these guys roving up their jacksy while they're busy fighting off the enemy coming from the other side of the map. And speaking of which, yep, they're already here. Now the difference in the scores has narrowed to only 1 kill, but that still doesn't really tell the full picture, because if you take a look at the mini-map down here, there are 2 members of Upmarket Garden's team who are basically no use to the team alive. There's a Tiger P, and you can't see him because he's basically being obscured by the Tiger P's name and icon, but there's a Leo down there as well. And I may be being a little unfair to the Leo, because I'm pretty sure he was involved in the fight for the hill, and he's... well, you can't tell from just looking at the mini-map, but if he was involved in the fight on the hill, he was lucky to get out of there alive. He's probably on low health, so he's fallen back to a position where he can maybe still do some good, get a few more shots off without getting one-shotted. But that Tiger P's hiding behind? Yeah, not so much. Back to Upmarket Garden 1944 in the Tortoise. I mean, the team are still ahead by 2 kills, but, well, you know, with the Tiger P not actually being any use whatsoever to the team alive, and with the enemy team pulling another kill back, you could argue that they're even. And he's gotten spotted. Has a quick look around, and I think it's the Panther that's doing the spotting. And the Panther itself isn't really that much of a threat. That thing is. What do you even call that thing? How do you pronounce the name of that? It's the KPZ... I mean, I've said in the past that I've long since given up trying to keep track of all the new machines that get introduced into this game on what seems like a weekly basis. But when the World of Tanks Wikipedia page itself has even given up trying to keep track, and that thing doesn't even have a wiki page entry. I mean, seriously, how do you say that? Anyway, whatever. Tough situation for Upmarket Garden here. Very tough situation with the whatever the hell you call it on his left flank. The second he gets spotted, I mean, he's tucked in behind this very, very small rock, and I'm sure he'd love to take shots at the Tiger 1 over there, but if he does, the Panther's going to spot him, and the Kapazapaka, whatever you call it, is going to spank him in the side or the rear, so he can't really leave the cover of this rock, which means that dealing with the Tiger 1 over there is basically going to be down to the UDES 14. Meanwhile, Upmarket Garden's thinking, that's whatever it is, has been quiet for a while. Surely he's looking somewhere else by now. Nope. No, he wasn't. He's just basically spent the last 2 minutes staring at that gap, waiting for him to make this move. Oh well. And he's firing gold, because of course he is. It's a high-tier battle in World of Tanks. Everybody's firing gold. Well, Upmarket Garden isn't. I mean, it doesn't really need to. This 120mm gun has 259mm of penetration with standard ammo. Can anybody remember when that was good? I mean, it's not bad, but 259mm of penetration in this game hasn't been great for a good few years now. Hence the proliferation of all the absurdly high penetration gold ammo. I mean, this thing gets 330mm of penetration with its APCR, and he's got some, he hasn't had to use it yet. And that's one of the things that I love about the Tortoise. Okay, this is probably a very bad example. But I was about to say, this gun is accurate enough that you can hit the weak spots of things that 259mm of penetration isn't good enough for. Unfortunately, he picked that exact moment to try to snipe the turret of a T-34-3, and that thing's turret effectively doesn't have any, so... But, you know, the point still stands. This is a very, very accurate gun. You don't need to just roll your face all over the 2 key and load the gold in order to... Well, unless you're shooting at something that's Russian or Chinese and has an impenetrable turret. Okay, under those circumstances, you would be better off rolling your face all over your 2 key and loading the skill. Oh, damn it. I try, but this game doesn't make it easy for me. Anyway, they did have a fairly commanding lead earlier, but, well, it's gone. They're now 1 kill behind. And sadly, while the UDES still has almost all of his health, the friendly Panther does not, and off-market Garden, if he takes a hit from anything other than that enemy Panther, or maybe the LTG, he's dead too. As is the friendly Panther, who just lost the Panther on Panther fight, although maybe the UDES is going to be able to avenge him. But at the moment, they're outnumbered 2-1. Where, oh where, did that massive early lead go? And the UDES has managed to draw it back. They're now only outnumbered 3-2. The enemy team do still have a light tank though, the LTG, and we haven't seen him in ages. I mean, that's not entirely surprising. He's a light tank. He's not supposed to get seen unless he has to. But Upmarket Garden can't sit behind this rock hiding from the whatever the hell it is forever, so he is taking a bit of a risk here. He's trying to make sure that the rock stays between him and its last reported position. And the UDES has spotted the T-34-3. Now you can see him backing up here thinking, shit, did I get spotted? But he did not get spotted. So wherever that LTG is and whatever he's doing, it doesn't seem to be immediately useful to his team either. I mean, it's possible he's flipped himself, we don't know. And to be fair, Cliff does have a lot of notorious spots where it's very easy to do that. But until you know, there's no sense in worrying about it. So, I mean, he's spotted now by the T-34-3. But he's managed to get himself in a position where, at least until we know where the LTG is, this is a one-on-one fight. Well, even then, it's not a one-on-one fight, because his team, which at the moment is just him and the UDES, have turned this into a two-on-one fight, with the enemy team, such as they are, not being able to do a single thing to assist this T-34-3. And you know what? He makes a brave stab of it. He almost takes out the UDES. So they're now both one-shot kills. Well, the UDES definitely is. I don't know enough about the LTG's gun to know whether or not it can potentially one-shot kill Upmarket Garden as well. But the fact that the Kipazith or whatever had no part in that fight whatsoever would indicate that he is probably, well, certainly was, probably sitting in that exact same spot, just waiting for Upmarket Garden to show himself again. It is likely, however, since we have seen neither hide nor hair of that LTG, that he has flipped the tank over. Because, I mean, at the very least you would have expected him, even if he couldn't spot anything, you would have expected him to maybe go for the cap, to draw the UDES away, in which case that T-34-3 may very well have won that fight, and Upmarket Garden would be dead. But he didn't even do that, so the UDES is going to check his last reported position and finish him off if he has in fact been flipped over. There are only two things that we know for sure about that LTG. One, he was spotted down there at the UDES's position nearly 5 whole minutes ago, and there are now less than 2 minutes of this battle remaining, and we haven't seen anything of him since then. Also, he is no longer in that position. So, the fact that he has done nothing for the last 5 minutes would suggest that he's probably flipped himself somewhere else on the map. And I think that after checking out his last location, that's the assumption that these two guys are working from, as they turn around to hopefully find, engage and kill the Kipazid or whatever. Because the only other possible explanation, and there he is that this guy is completely incapable of thinking and breathing at the same time. To be completely fair to him, he has managed to spring this, let's be generous and call it an ambush, on Upmarket Garden, when the UDES is on the other side of the hill and isn't able to come to his assistance. I can't help but feel that he should have picked the other target first though. And again, you know, he does appear to be broadly aware of the concept of circling non-turreted tank destroyers, but he doesn't appear to be aware of the concept of avoiding terrain that prevents you from circling non-turreted tank destroyers. Oh dear. That guy only fired 5 shots this entire game, and only one of them did damage. That one. However, there's less than 30 seconds of the battle left, and they still have to find and kill the last enemy tank. So unless that guy has broken cover and headed over in this direction, too late to actually help the LTG, and he has, and there he is, but, well, the Tortoise has a good gun, but it's not going to do 503 damage in one shot, and the Udez doesn't want to die. He's gone around the other side, and Upmarket Garden doesn't have the time to take 2 shots. So he fires and does 430 damage, and it's just not enough to kill him. The 1 tick of damage from the engine fire that he calls does, though. You lucky bastard. With 7 seconds left on the clock. Nearly 5,000 damage done. Only the 4 kills, no Top Gun, but despite all of the gold being fired at him, the steel wall medal there with more than 4,000 damage blocked. I mean, the Tortoise, it's still got it where it counts. And because he didn't fire a single round of gold ammo, I mean, you really don't need to in this thing. Its gun is accurate, I mean, unless, of course, you're shooting at something like a Soviet medium. When you can only see its turret, in which case, yes, pretty much everybody then has to fire gold ammo, but without firing a single round of gold ammo, even if he hadn't had a premium account, which he does, he would have still made a profit. Not much of a profit, but it's better than losing money. So that was Upmarket Garden 1944 in the British Tier 9 tank destroyer the Tortoise, in a highly unusual game on the cliff map, not just because of the ending, but the fact that it almost lasted the entire full 15 minutes and wasn't just over and done, with one team ruffle stomping the other in 6 minutes flat. Hope you enjoyed it. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.